4 dead in crash in Yunlong. Stephen Chan spared jail over corruption. And Donald Zheng's misconduct case heading to the High Court.
Good evening. We begin with a fatal traffic accident in Yunlong this afternoon. At least 4 people, including a baby girl, were killed in a collision involving a minibus and a truck. 14 others were injured. Police are trying to determine what caused the deadly crash. Evelina Long reports.
The junction of Kamshong Road and Tongwu Road in Yunlong was where the fatal accident happened at around 4 p.m. The crash involved a franchise or green minibus and a truck. The area was cordoned off by police. Those who were injured were escorted onto ambulances and rushed to hospital. The minibus was left lying on its side. Firefighters and paramedics quickly arrived at the scene over reports that passengers were trapped inside. A passerby recalled the chaos after the collision.
I see inside, I think 6 or 7 people. Also one small baby I saw. It's very small, 2-3 months old only. Some have bleeding, some people just crying and asked to help.
The front of the truck was seriously damaged. According to the authorities, 4 people were pronounced dead at the scene. The truck driver has been arrested on suspicion of dangerous driving causing death. Evelina Lang, TVB News.
Former TVB General Manager Stephen Chan and his ex-assistant Ethan Zhang have been fined over their high-profile corruption case. As Owen Fung reports, the judge said in sentencing that the case is unique and different from other graft cases.
Stephen Chan left the High Court without answering questions from the media after sentencing. Following a Court of Appeal decision earlier, trial judge Pun Seo-tung today convicted Chan and his former assistant Ethan Zhang of conspiracy to accept advantages. The case revolves around a special episode of the TVB talk show Be My Guest, which took place at the Olympian City shopping mall on New Year's Eve in 2009. Without the broadcaster's permission, Chan received $112,000 for hosting the show from the mall through Zhang's company. Chan's lawyer submitted more than 30 letters in mitigation, including one by Mona Fong, director of Television Broadcast Limited. In the letter, Fong says she believes what Chan did not conflict with the broadcaster's interests, and had he asked for a permission to host the show, she would have agreed. Former TVB Executive Chairman Norman Leung said in his letter that he has no doubt about Chan's integrity. He believes Chan made the mistake out of mere ignorance of the law. In sentencing, the judge said the mitigation letters show that Chan did not try to deceive anyone on purpose. He stated that the case is different from other corruption cases, as there is no corruption element. As such, the judge said imprisonment is inappropriate, and neither is community service because Chan is already involved in charity work. In the end, Chan was given an $84,000 fine. As for Zhang, he was slapped with a $28,000 fine. After passing sentences, the judge once again highlighted the unique nature of the present case. He went on to stress that the court sees corruption as a serious offence, and in normal circumstances, offenders would be jailed. Owen Fung, TVB News.
The case of former Chief Executive Donald Zheng, who is accused of misconduct in public office, is being transferred to the High Court. The hearing is not expected to begin until 2017. The former CE and his wife arrived at Eastern Magistracy today. The prosecution said it will summon 26 witnesses to testify, including Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam and former Chief Secretary Henry Tang. Zheng has been released on bail on 2 conditions. The former CE has to attend a pre-trial review and inform the ICAC if he changes his address.
Authorities in Beijing have issued the red alert for the second time because of heavy smog in the capital. Authorities warned residents to prepare for a wave of smog arriving over the weekend, the worst of which is expected over Beijing. The National Meteorological Center said the smog would stretch from Xi'an through Beijing and up into Shenyang and Harbin in the northeast. The red alert, the most serious level, will last from 7 tomorrow morning through Tuesday.
Turning overseas now, diplomats say they are not optimistic that the latest round of talks on ending Syria's civil war will achieve anything of substance. But there was progress on the finance front as the United Nations Security Council voted overwhelmingly on a resolution to blunt the finances of the Islamic State. The 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council are struggling to agree on a draft resolution endorsing a new international bid to end the Syrian civil war. Talks have been ongoing throughout the week in Paris, Moscow and now in New York. But now America's ambassador to the UN, Samantha Power, does not think a draft resolution may be ready by today because of disagreements among the 5 permanent members. Those disagreements revolve around the role of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and which rebel groups to involve in the peace process. Foreign ministers from more than a dozen countries are in New York for another round of talks on ending the Syrian civil war.
We have supported this process. We actually suggested a national unity government a long time ago.
Still, it wasn't all frustration as finance ministers representing all members of the Security Council unanimously adopted a resolution overnight aimed at disrupting revenue that the extremist group gets from oil and antiquity sales, ransom payments and other criminal activities.
A critical part of the U.S. whole-of-government strategy is the use of counter-terror financing tools and authorities to stop ISIL's operations by isolating it financially and economically.
Finance ministers said turning the screws on Islamic State financially was an important part of the overall effort to defeat the group.
Look, I think we've got, with this United Nations resolution, a very clear cover and authority to go after not just the terrorists themselves, but all the middle people involved in financing this organisation. And, you know, if you are involved in the oil trade or the antiquities trade, with ISIL, Daesh, you know, you should see from this resolution that you are absolutely in our sights. And the world has come together today in New York to say that is not only unacceptable, but we are going to come after you.
Also this week, a US defense official said Kurdish Peshmerga forces, with the help of coalition air support, managed to repulse an Islamic State attack around the Iraqi city of Mosul. US defense officials said it was the most serious attack by the group in more than 5 months. Elsewhere, Israel and Turkey have reached an understanding that could lead to the restoration of ties between the two former allies. Relations between the two countries broke down in 2010 after an Israeli naval raid on a Gaza-bound flotilla killed 10 people, many of them Turkish citizens. Israel has apologized to Turkey for the deaths and agreed to compensate the victims' families under a US-brokered arrangement in 2013. But efforts to restore ties faltered amid new Israeli action in Gaza. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said earlier this week the entire region would benefit from the normalization of ties. And amid heightened tensions with Russia, Turkey could also start buying natural gas from Israel.
Authorities in the U.S. say the man who bought assault rifles used in the San Bernardino massacre has been charged with terrorism-related counts for plotting separate attacks. 24-year-old Enrique Marquez was charged with plotting with San Bernardino gunman Saeed Farouk to launch attacks in 2011 and 2012, but they were never carried out. Following the December 2nd massacre, Marquez called police and told them Farouk and his wife used his guns in the shooting. Marquez was later committed to a hospital psychiatric ward. He told police that 4 years ago he and his neighbor Farouk planned to throw homemade pipe bombs into a community college, then shoot people as they fled. The 3 charges Marquez is facing carry a jail term of up to 35 years. Meanwhile, U.S. President Barack Obama says there's no credible information suggesting a potential terrorist attack against the United States in the upcoming holiday season. Still, he's called for vigilance.
At this moment, our intelligence and counterterrorism professionals do not have any specific and credible information about an attack on the homeland. That said, we have to be vigilant. As I indicated in my address to the nation last week, We are in a new phase of terrorism, including lone actors and small groups of terrorists, like those in San Bernardino. Because they are smaller, often self-initiating, self-motivating, they're harder to detect, and that makes it harder to prevent.
And still ahead at our news tonight. Gym staff arrested over suspected aggressive sales practice. Debate on copyright bill in Lechco again goes nowhere. And notorious pharmaceutical entrepreneur in U.S. court for alleged fraud.